He said, what is the actual adhan time for the Asr prayer? The adhan is due upon entering the time of any prayer. And Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi salam to educate him with regards to the prayer times. He came to him twice. Once at the earliest time of each prayer, and the second time at the last time of each prayer, to indicate this is the time, beginning and end for each prayer. So for instance, the time of Asr it begins at the end of the time of Dhuhr prayer. So what is the end of the time of Dhuhr prayer? Is when the shadow of an object, let's say this pen, a standing pen, it has a length. Let's say it is 6 inches, for instance. When we set the pen like that, perpendicular, under the sun, it will have a shadow. So when the shadow of that pen, or any object, a standing man, a stick, or whatever, becomes, the length of the shadow becomes double the length of the object itself, ظِلُّ الشَّيْءِ مِثْلَيْهِ, then that is the end of the time for Dhuhr prayer, and that is the beginning of the Asr prayer time, which is the adhan time as well. So if somebody is camping or going on the shore or going in a vacation, doesn't have a prayer table, it's very easy to figure out the Dhuhr prayer, the Asr prayer, and obviously Maghrib and Fajr and Isha, no big deal. For Fajr is the dawn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكُلُوا وَتَبَيَّنُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. When it becomes clear to you that there is a separation, a distinction between the darkness of the night and the light of the day, this is the meaning of the white thread and the black thread. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمْ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ, the white thread of the day, the light of the day, from the black thread, مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ, from the black thread, which refers to the darkness of the night. And the end of the prayer time for Fajr is sunrise. And the Prophet ﷺ was asked about the best deed, and the deed is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الصلاة على وقتها, or الصلاة لوقتها, two different narrations, which means to pray at the earliest time of the prayer. So there is a due time, and there is an allowance where you can pray any time in between until it is the last time, where it becomes very dangerous, because if you miss the prayer, it becomes a major sin. If you delay or postpone the prayer from its fixed time until the prayer of the next, until the time of the next prayer has entered. So now, the beginning of Asr prayer is the end of Dhuhr prayer. When the shadow of an object, its length becomes twice the length of the object itself. Then, what is the last time for Asr? Because he asked about Asr especially, is sunset. In the hadith, which is collected by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, من أدرك ركعة من العصر قبل أن تغرب الشمس فقد أدرك العصر. If you manage to pray one rak'ah before sunset, that means you have prayed Asr within its time. Of course, that should not be misunderstood as it's okay to delay the prayer until you are on the edge or you're close to miss its time. No, it means if you're on a journey, if there was a necessity, if you overslept, then you woke up. If you manage to pray one rak'ah of the Asr before sunset, that is the Asr time. And it also indicates that is the end of the Asr time and the beginning of the Maghrib time. That applies to every prayer approaching the end of that prayer and the beginning of the time of the following prayer. The Maghrib begins at sunset and it ends when the red light disappears. So it begins the time for Isha. the Isha prayer begins at this time and it ends at midnight. Not as many people think that the Isha prayer time is extended till Fajr. That is not true. Midnight is not always 12 a.m. Midnight is the result of dividing the entire time between sunset and dawn, Fajr, by 2. So if it is 6 hours, fine. If it is 6.5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, more or less, sometimes it's only 3 hours. Some states, the time between Isha and Fajr is only 3 hours, depending on where you are on the map. The Dhuhr prayer, its time begins when the sun moves away from its meridian. That's called Waqtu Zawal. Zawal is when the sun starts moving towards what? Moving from the middle of the sky towards the west, because it's been rising from the east, and whenever it is in the middle, this is time where you cannot pray. Waqtu karaha, it is disliked. Then when the sun moves away from its meridian, this is the beginning of the Dhuhr prayer. And the end of the Dhuhr prayer time is when the length of the shadow of an object becomes twice as long as the length of the object itself. Barakallah fikum.